Some of you expressed concern about the length of these videos. For your convenience, check out the table of contents on the right-hand side. Feel free to start at the beginning and work your way through the video for some awesome in-depth insights. But if you see what you came for, or just want to see something over that you didn't catch the first time, please feel free. And as always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Hey guys, this is Shaft of the Clenny Casting Crew, and you are tuned in to our Zerg Spellcasters Unit Control video. Now, just a little bit of bookkeeping before we do get into this. In case you're wondering why we chose some of the units we did in order to feature in this video, basically, the way this is going to work is we have defined anything with an active unit ability, from anything to Banelings to Overseers to Vipers to Infestors, as spellcasters. And I know that goes against the, established idea of a spellcaster, but the whole goal of this video is to tell you how to be more cost effective with spellcasters, as they are supposed to be significantly more cost effective than non-spellcasting units when used properly, but also to help players that are having a little more issue with things like even splitting Marines. Well, Stimpack, that's an active unit ability, therefore that's a spellcaster as well, at least by our definition. So, just with that in the back of your mind, we will be going ahead and launching right on into this. Now, we have a lot of different coaches helping out on this. I know a lot of people maybe a little bit misunderstanding the format. Basically, we're just trying to set things up where we start with a really basic situation and progressively make it more complicated. You should clearly see what I mean. Within the first segment, we start real small, real simple, not really paying attention to the metagame, and then build to a really more complex scenario. But again, this is supposed to be a timeless video, one that teaches control, not meta, not strategy, not tactics, simply control, how to do something, not what to do or why to do it. Again, I think a lot of people will be very, very satisfied. So we're going to hop right on into this. Hope you enjoy it. With energy-based spellcasters like Infestors, you want to be sure to cast your spells and then get out. You want the units to stay alive at any cost, as the longer they're alive, the more energy they gain, and thus, the more cost-effective they are. It's also important, when using Infestors, to use Fungal Growth to hold units in place, and then use ranged units like Hydralisks to zone out units like Sentries or Zealots that maybe couldn't attack the Hydralisks. That's what we're seeing here. Battle's going to go ahead and clean right on up. And now, this is going to be Ultralisks versus Infestors. This will show off Neural Parasite. This is a battle with nothing being cast whatsoever by a Zerg, just to go ahead and show that, indeed the Protoss does win this battle if spellcasters are not used. Now, this is going to do exactly the same thing, only we're going to use Neural Parasite on the Archon, which does extra damage to biological including all Zerg units, and thus, we'll take a lot less damage and have a little beefy unit at the front of our army. Let's see how much damage it actually does. Wow. Not only does the Zerg win it, he wins it by a much larger margin. Now let's move on to Vipers. They're a new unit in Heart of Swarm with a lot of cool abilities, such as Abduct, Blinding Cloud, and Consume. This is not showing any of the Viper spells here. This is simply showing that the two armies on screen, of the two armies, Protoss is better. And, killing off all these roaches, Vipers, obviously the Protoss army, in a straight-up head-to-head engagement, is better. Now, let's see what happens when we actually use the Viper spells. Okay, so this is going to be an Abduct right here on a Stalker, allowing the roaches to target down the Stalker at a lot less kiting. Stalkers do a lot of their DPS in kiting, and you can even see a lot of this kiting is going on here as well. Now, obviously, the roaches are staying alive a lot longer. The Stalkers are bruised, they're losing shields, and ultimately, they're actually going to lose this engagement. A lot of that comes down to simply abducting one of the Stalkers so it can be focus fired down later. This is commonly used against things like Colossi that, again, kite backwards while doing massive amounts of DPS. In this next scene, we're actually going to see this used against Colossi. Or this may just be showing that the two armies are better. I'm not sure. Yeah, this is actually I'm going ahead pulling those Colossi right into the Roach Hydra army. Simply, again, not allowing the Protoss DPS, the glass cannons of the Protoss, the Colossi, Void Rays, Phoenixes, things that cannot be mass-produced very quickly, to just go ahead and be targeted down. Now, it's this next scene right here that is going to be Sans Viper, that is no Vipers involved, just to show that this exact same army, same resource counts as the last scene where the Zerg won, exact same composition, but this time, obviously, the Protoss is winning because Colossi laser beams melt Zergy McFerguson. Period. No questions asked. Now, on to Queens! Queens are good, okay? Well, basically, with such abilities as Transfuse, Inject, Pooping Out Creep, the ability to push that poop all the way to your opponent's base so that when he starts smelling it, you can literally just slide right on down that poop highway real fast and start transfusing your Ultralisks. That first battle, obviously, no transfusions were used. This time, we're going to show how much of a difference Transfuse actually makes on these Ultralisks. You see the creep highway, you see the Immortals, same Zealots to buffer for those Immortals, and oh my god, what a difference. He kills one Ultralisk there, and the Protoss army dies. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. Corruptors aren't spellcasters, are they? Well, yeah, tonight they are. Okay, so we're defining spellcasters as anything with an active unit ability. In this scenario, we're showing Corruptors versus Tempests. And this is going to be without actually using Corruption, and then we'll show it using Corruption. Basically, Corruption allows your attacks to do 20% more damage, which is like having 20% more Corruptors. Or, if you have 10, that's like having 12. It actually really does add up, despite being an ability that is often underused and overlooked. Now, we're actually going to show this battle again. This time we're using Corruption and just going ahead and focus firing the Tempest. Just like in the last battle, they're kiting out. As soon as they kite, we're switching out targets. That's not changing. The only difference here is the fact that Corruption is being used, and you can see a completely different story being told simply by the units that are left on screen. The Tempests just can't handle it. Swarm hosts are a positional unit. They're kind of hard to use. What you want to do is to position them at various locations on the map to siege either your opponent's standing army and get unit kills for basically units that cost you nothing, or to draw his armies out of position, or to siege a particular location like a base. What you don't want to do is to have the army actually camped outside of your swarm host, as we see here, because that means your swarm host will be dying. As a Zerg player, you have to make sure you snipe observers and any other forms of detection, like overseers as well. Obviously, Terran, you're not sniping anything, but make sure you're aiming for that, because that will make your swarm host a heck of a lot better. And then just engage with other various units to allow you to get a flank, that sort of thing. Swarm hosts are real tricky. It's going to take some playing around with, but with proper micro, good map awareness, and of course great macro, you should be able to stay alive with them very, very well. They are not a defensive unit, though, unless you put spines and spores on. Okay, so we're shifting gears just a little bit to take a look at Zerg vs. Terran. We're going to revisit the Infestor and actually take a look at some different ways that the Infestor can be used against Terran that might not have been as beneficial against Protoss. Now, the particular scenario we're watching here, the Zerg's getting kited like a madman. He had Infestor Ultralisk, but was not using the Infestors. Now, this is the same exact composition, no unit difference. The only difference here is we are actually going to do some fungals. Key fungal right there. Going ahead, catching the Bioball. And see how the Bioball cannot kite. This makes the Ultralisks significantly more effective. And as you can see, there's really nothing that the Terran there can do to stay alive against these Ultralisks. Eventually, he's just going to run out of bio, no matter how cost effective the Zerg actually was. It's a clear victory there. And now we're going to take a look at this on ramp. Obviously, the Zerg has the ramp here. As the Bioball tries to go up a ramp, baiting out a fungal right there, but they do get stuck on the ramp. But you can see the Infestors dropping great fungals. Fungals doing even better because it's a tight little choke. Hydralisks basically detailing everything else. This is just showing how you can zone out the Bioball because you're on a ramp by holding the Bioball there with the Hydralisk. Hydralisks have exactly the same range, but you had a little bit more vision, and they were held in place. Now we're going to have this happen in a extremely big battle. This is actually going to be Neural Parasite. Again, we're just showing a battle without any kind of Infestor usage. It's not looking good for our Zerg player here. No heroes in this whatsoever. The Zerg's just crashed and burned. But now we're going to factor in the Neural Parasite on a Thor. Again, Thors do some pretty good damage, but mostly they're a tanky unit. And as you can see, they are going to definitely turn the tide of battle here. So this is just showing, again, how effective spellcasters can be. Just one or two of them. You don't need a bunch. And as the game progresses, that energy is going to keep building up. These units are going to be more useful. You don't have to sacrifice them or actually engage with them in hand-to-hand combat and risk losing them. Okay, so this is the infamous Baneling Landmine trick. Basically, you're going to burrow your Banelings in clumps of 2. The Banelings will do immediate damage to whatever's nearby in clumps, and then lesser damage to radius spiraling outwards. So as you can see, by clumping it up in 2 different groups there, we were able to eliminate most of the Bioball and then finish up with Speedlings there. Baneling Landmine's a very effective spellcaster, quote-unquote. So here we go, taking a look at Queens yet again. This is again going to be transfused, this time in a Corruptor scenario, Corruptors versus Vikings. Here is Corruptor versus Viking, no transfusion whatsoever. It also is factoring in Queen's attack DPS against the Vikings. As you can see, the air battle does go to the Vikings. Now imagine if there were Broodlords behind the Corruptors and Queens there. Those would be dead Broodlords. So, being that Broodlords can sometimes be a huge part of this matchup, we wanted to show, excuse me, show this, and now we're going to show it with Transfuse. Same number of Vikings, same number of Corruptors and Queens, but an entirely different scenario here. As you can obviously see, the Viking count completely diminished, still got Corruptors left over, and here we go, here goes the last Viking now. So, yeah, again, Transfuse, very, very underused. Mech is famous for being the most cost-effective composition that Terran can throw at Zerg. Watch what happens when Blinding Cloud is factored in. Here we have Roach Hydra against Mech, Hellbats, roasting everything in front of them. This does not have Blinding Clouds. This is just to show the complete devastation on the Zerg, even dropping Changelings here at the last minute, and even they explode. But now we're going to have exactly the same composition go up with key Blinding Clouds on things like Siege Tanks and Hellbats that do most of the DPS. These are the glass cannons of the Terran army, so just by Blinding Clouding those, their range has completely diminished, and there's a huge Roach Hydra force left. Completely different battle here, just by dropping 1 or 2 spells. And now we're going to check out Zvz Infestors. This is going to be Infestor versus Mutas. We have about 7 Mutalisks against 3 Infestors here. We're just dropping Fungal Growth. Now we're finally throwing down Infested Terran here. This is an okay situation, but this has got no splitting whatsoever on the Mutalisking player. If a Mutalisk player pre-splits, in theory, they're going to do a lot better against Fungal Growth and potentially drain the energy off of your Infestor. So what you'll see is some of the time is players dropping their Infested Terran on the ground first, waiting for them to get close to spawning and then Fungal Growthing. Of course, some Mutalisks can always get away and target down your Infestors. As you can see, we are having some difficulties here keeping Infestors alive. There's one final alternative, and this is going to feature a complete pre-split by the Mutalisking player who's completely sure that Infestors are on the way and just doesn't want to deal with it. Again, just complete splitting here. Just no way Fungal Growthing would have been effective there, so he's got to throw down a bunch of Infested Terran, which actually do really well against Mutalisks, and then just run his Infestors around those Infested Terran to bait shots off the Mutalisks. The Mutalisk would be forced off if they didn't want to engage that. Next, we're going to look at Fungal Kiting. Basically, again, we're on a ramp, and we're going to drop Fungals defensively as our opponent pushes up that ramp, and then just use complete range to our advantage. This is a Hydralisk player. Now, this is with no Fungal Growth here. This just shows you that that is a devastating number of Roaches. They will, hands down, easily beat the Hydralisks. Obviously, that's the case. Now we're going to go ahead and respawn. This time, we're actually going to do some Fungal Growth. And this time, we're not on a ramped up map. We're going to be doing this in an open terrain. So Fungal is not going to be quite as effective here. We just want to display what things are like without perfect Fungals. So, lots of Fungal energy being baited down, but the Hydralisk's still doing a good job kiting backwards. Again, Fungals getting used, picking off big numbers of Roaches, but ultimately the Roaches are still going to win that battle. Now, we're going to go back to that ramp, because this is where things get interesting. Oops, too many Hydralisks. Let's go back, reload. Yeah. Alright, so again, this time we're going to have the blue attack up the ramp again, but we're going to Fungal Growth, and watch what happens. It's completely different than we've seen so far. Throwing down a couple of Infested Terran because he's trying to bait up, but that's just a little error here. We're going to go ahead and reload this one more time. Okay, reset energy. Alright, we're going to do this. We're going to do this, I promise. Promise we're going to do this. Alright, we're going up here. So, good fungal's going off. That gets most of the roaches. Now, the hydralisks are moving back. They're using their range to their advantage. This is a lot of complicated micro, but as long as you're landing the fungals, the rest is elementary, my dear Watson. The rest is elementary. As you can see, the roaches just having a really horrendous time against this, and ultimately the hydralisks coming out on top. Now we're going to be looking at what it's like to have roach hydralisks with fungal growth versus roach hydras without. I want you to see how much of a difference fungal growth actually makes in a matchup like this. Alright, so here we go. Blue is attacking in. Blue has a lot more hydralisks back there, even some more roaches. As you can see, red has the infestors tucked away in the corner. This is going to be a infestor usage here, so obviously, you know, the player with the bigger number of roaches and hydras wins this engagement. Makes logical sense. But now we're gonna factor in infestors. Oops, Infestaterran are just chilling here on the map. Let's reset. Okay, cool. So now we've got the bigger number of roach hydras. Blues are on the right. Now we've got a smaller number of roach hydra on the left with infestor support. And watch what's going to happen. Watch the difference that just a couple of key fungals is going to make here. Because it locks the roaches down so that most of them aren't attacking. It keeps the hydras in the back so again they can't really attack. And you just have more DPS for longer. And that is ultimately, again, going to make all the difference here. A little bit of a dance. And after celebrating, let's go right on over here to the field. We are on the field. Now, this is a wide open terrain, similar to something like the middle of Whirlwind, maybe. But, again, we want to show that fungal is good in certain situations. In other situations, not so much. And you're going to see that here. There's pre-splits for both sides. Pre-splits are basically what defeats fungal growth each and every time. But still, you know, this will be effective. It's just not as effective. Roaches basically just buffering there for the hydralisks. But the red player is doing better than he did in previous engagements, but he doesn't win this battle yet. This is the most cost-effective of anything so far. So if you're going to do Roach Hydra, you find yourself behind, add Infestors. And now we're taking a look at Roach Hydra versus Roach Hydra Viper. This first battle, we've got the blue Roach Hydra player with Vipers, the red Roach Hydra purely. There is no spellcasting being done, no Blinding Cloud, nothing like that here. Just showing you that the red Zerg army is better than the blue Zerg army, at least when spellcasters are not being used. Now, we're going to have the Vipers actually being utilized to show just how much more cost-effective they are and what role they bring to this matchup. Now, these players are doing a pre-split, basically going ahead and pre-forming their concave. This is something you can always do right before an engagement if you're scared to attack into your opponent. But now we have the red player attacking into the blue player. Blinding Cloud does go down. That's going to make Red's Roach Hydra completely obsolete in a lot of ways. As long as that Blinding Cloud is applied, the Roach Hydra is at melee range. So blue obviously going to clean this up off the back of some beautiful Blinding Clouds. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you learned a lot. This is Shaft of the Clinic Casting crew signing out, and as always, thanks for being awesome.
Everything from Baneling bus to 4 gates. Call them easy drop meals and ask them how the floor tastes. Backs up against the wall, and you know that you'll be giving your all. But they tell you that you're bound to fall. You tell them right